What is outlining in law school? If you've ever wondered that, you are not alone. That term gets thrown around all the time, and it's never really clear what it is or how to do it. So first of all, outlining is basically a way to rewrite and reorganize your reading notes and your class notes in a way that makes sense to your brain. And because everyone processes information a little bit differently, there's no one right way to outline, but there are definitely some foundational steps that you can put into place to make outlining easier, and then tweak and personalize that process to you as it relates to the way you understand information or the way that your professor presents it in class. Step one of creating your outline is to copy and paste the syllabus from your course into a blank document. And the reason that we want to do this is we want to grab those headings and subheadings that your professor has outlined as a way that he or she is moving through the material, so you can see at a high level where each section is fitting in with the others. Now, if your professor doesn't have a syllabus that makes any sense or has any helpful headings or subheadings, then you can use the table of contents of your textbook as a really strong plan B. Step two is to capture all of the big takeaways and major concepts that you have been reading for class and taking notes on in class under that main subsection. So for example, if you're in contracts class and you guys are learning about different remedies for breach of contract, you will likely have things like specific performance, rescission, money damages under that main subsection, and all of the rules and concepts that correspond to those big takeaways. Step three is to now build out each individual subsection. And so at the top of each individual subsection, you are going to have a recitation of the rules and major concepts that relate to that subsection. So for example, if you're in contracts class, you will probably have a subsection specifically around money damages. And in that subsection, you're going to have things like expectation damages, liquidated damages, restitution damages. And as you build this out from your reading notes and class notes, keep in mind that we want to include any of the language that your professor is using in class. So any hypos that he or she has touched on, any wording that he or she has used, any black letter law, and any related concepts that they have touched on, we want to make sure we're capturing that in those subsections as well. Step four is to incorporate the cases that you have been reading and covering in class into your outline, because now we have a really solid structure for the main takeaways of the heading, the subsection that you are outlining under, and now we can start to fit in these cases to see not only what the takeaways of the cases are, but where they correlate in terms of the larger concept that you're outlining. And so when I am including a case in my outline, I like to look for one line of facts, one line for the rule, one line for the holding, and then a pretty generous chunk of space for the analysis / reasoning, where I can include any of the rationales or descriptions or explanations by the judge for why he or she came to the decision that he or she came to, including any explanations that my professor is covering in class. Step five is to emphasize for your future self the most important takeaways in your outline. And so what do I mean by this? When we fast forward 2, 3, 4 months into the future and you are reviewing your outline, it is so demoralizing to just see a sea of black text for 80 pages. What we want to do instead is to in some way indicate to our future self what are the non-negotiables, what are definitely going to make it on to the next round when we are studying for final exams. And so the best way to do that is some combination of underlining and bolding, underlining, bolding, and highlighting, or adding asterisks to the things that you know are non-negotiables that must make it onto the next round. And so the things that we're kind of looking for in this category are definitely rule statements, definitely any factor tests or analyses that came up, or anything that your professor emphasized in class by writing it on the board or explaining it multiple times, or maybe putting it in a PowerPoint slide. So any indication of those things that without a doubt are going to make it to the next round, go ahead and emphasize those for yourself so that 2, 3, 4 months down the line, you can very clearly see where those big takeaways are and organize and condense the information around those concepts. So now that we've walked through exactly how to build out your outline, there are 3 important takeaways from outlining overall. And the first one is that outlining is only the messy middle. It is not designed to be perfect. It is not designed to be pristine, because this is not your final study document for final exams. If you're interested in how outlining works in the overall law school study strategy, then definitely check out my free Beat the Curve guide here. It walks through the 5-step study plan of how I love to structure a law school grade strategy, and you can see what comes before and what comes after outlining in terms of the overall process. But the important takeaway here is this is for your understanding in a way that makes sense to your brain. This is not the final study document. The second big takeaway for outlining overall is a huge bias I have in favor of over-inclusion rather than under-inclusion. When you're first starting out law school, especially as a 1L, you haven't yet developed a filter to easily and quickly identify what things are important and what things are unimportant. And so rather than torturing yourself line by line and wasting a ton of time and energy trying to decide what makes the cut and what doesn't, go ahead and include something if you're on the fence. The reason for this is because you will allow your brain to see the information one more time before making any final cuts at the end of the semester anyway. And it is so much easier to cut something down the line than it is to try to go back in time, find a concept you think you remember, and add it back in. So remember, if you are ever on the fence, go ahead and include it in your outline, and you can cut it one more time before final exams down the road. The third big takeaway when it comes to outlining overall is that this is the first deep thinking step of the 5-step study strategy, and it's designed to help you internalize the material. So don't feel like you have to do it alone. And what I mean by that is as you're outlining, feel free to reference a supplement, a 2L or 3L outline, make a list of questions to bring to professor office hours, because this really is the step where you are starting to internalize and not only learn the concepts, but connect them back to the larger sort of umbrella concepts that you guys are learning. So definitely use those resources as a way to fill in the gaps, make sure that you're on the right track, and get any clarification for pieces of the puzzle that feel unclear or confusing. So now that you are super clear on how to outline, go ahead and start outlining right away. There's no reason to wait until 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks into the semester to get started. We want to start as early as possible, even as early as that first week of class, so that you can open up time and space on the back end, the end of the semester, to really work through those final 2 study steps. And if you guys are feeling clear on outlining but not as clear on case briefs, then definitely check out this video where I talk through how to build out a case brief in a really streamlined, efficient, and strategic way. All right, guys, that's it for this week's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.